Somebody asked, is purification with Lama Tsongkhapa as strong as purifying with Vajrasattva? It depends mostly on the strength of your regret. Yeah, not so much on the practice that you do, but the strength of your regret. So whenever you do purification, really have strong regret, and as much as possible determination not to do the action again, either forever or give yourself a certain period of time. And then somebody else said that last year when we were doing the refuge in Undra, there was a whole list of things to practice in relationship to spiritual mentor, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And if you look in the 35 Buddhist practice, which you do, and the confession prayers that come after that, there's lists of different kinds of actions. And so people were wondering, well, are those the only things that we purify? Now think about it. Yeah, I think you can answer that question yourself. Yeah. So there's many different ways of looking at things to purify. You can go through the list of the 6 root afflictions, the 20 secondary afflictions. You can use the 57 faults that Nagarjuna talked about. You can purify the 3 sets of precepts, be they your pratimoksha precepts, which include your lay precepts and monastic precepts, your bodhisattva precepts, your tantric precepts. You can purify the self-centeredness that hinders your ability to generate bodhicitta. Whatever is an obscuration, you can purify. You don't have to ask me permission. Okay? Okay, so the more the merrier. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay. Just one other thing about Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, you can do the dissolution. I just mentioned it before, the simple one, where Lama Tsongkhapa, the disciples dissolve into Lama Tsongkhapa, who dissolves into you and merges in your heart, or you, the people with the initiation, can do the more complex one. Then here somebody's talking about their feet falling asleep and hunger, and and it's very interesting because it's very good what this person is doing, because they're noticing sensations in their feet and then seeing how they label that, my feet falling asleep, or a certain feeling in your stomach, and then labeling that hunger. And that as soon as you label it, my feet falling asleep, or you label it hunger, then how your mind relates to it is different. Yeah. Okay. So then comes the question, well, what do you do? I mean, do you let your feet fall asleep? Do you not eat when you're hungry? Do you hate your body because it has these sensations? No, none of these, okay? The idea here behind, the mindfulness of sensations in the bodies, and particularly here looking at the mindfulness of feelings, agreeable feelings, disagreeable feelings, pleasant, painful, like that, is to look at how you relate to them. And so usually we relate to the feelings that accompany those physical sensations with, displeasure. It's usually an unhappy, suffering feeling, isn't it? Yeah. And when we have that kind of feeling, we usually respond with, I don't like it, it's gotta go. Okay? So some kind of aversion, anger, frustration, being fed up, something along that line. And so to notice how, sensation, feeling, because sensation, we're just talking about the raw physical data. Feeling is the pleasant, unpleasant. And then the response to that, And so right now our response has a lot to do with craving. We're craving for more pleasant sensations. We're craving to be free of unpleasant sensations. But does that mean that, how do we respond to those things that produce those sensations in our life? First of all, don't hate your body. Your body's just a lump of organic stuff. There's nothing to hate in it, okay? And the thing is, the troublemaker is the ignorance, anger, and attachment. Those are the real troublemakers, okay? So you can eat with attachment, yeah, but if you're eating with attachment, the solution to getting rid of the attachment is not to stop eating. Okay, we need to eat, okay? Our body needs nourishment. So what we have to do is we have to practice eating without attachment. Now that may be a little bit more difficult to do, but we practice it. And that's why we go through the 5 contemplations before we offer the food. Because if you really think about those 5 contemplations while you're eating and before you're eating, then your attachment to the food is much less. Yeah? So we definitely need to eat. When things are hurting really bad, no, don't worry, you're not going to be crippled for life. That's the story our mind makes up. But it also doesn't mean that you need to stay in pretzel position so that all you feel is extreme pain all the time in your meditation session. That doesn't do much good either. So I advocate a kind of middle way here. Yeah, you observe the sensation, you observe the pain, you observe how the mind dislikes the pain. You observe how when you don't focus on the pain, I hate to say this, but you often don't feel it. Yeah? Has that ever been your experience? Yeah? Like, you have a bad toothache. But when you focus on toothache, boy, it throbs. But when you're focused on something else, you forget you have a bad toothache. Every parent knows this. This is what you do when a baby cries, is you expose it to some other stimulus. And it's so looking at the other stimulus that the baby often forgets that it's miserable, it's unhappy about something. Not always, but often, okay? So we have a baby mind. Sorry, maybe I'm just speaking about myself. But it's very interesting to watch how when we focus on something, the pain and our dislike of the pain become quite intense. Yeah, when we focus on something else, then we feel differently about it. Of course, you can't say to yourself, I'm not going to focus on the pain in my leg, because that's like saying, I'm not going to think about a white elephant. What do you think about? Okay, so, you have to be skillful with the mind. Yeah. If you have a pain that's really distracting, move your leg. Yeah, but move your leg quietly. Okay, don't stretch it out. Oh! Okay? And also realize it takes you a while. It takes your body a while to get used to sitting this long. I remember when I first did Vajrasattva, my first year of practice, 3-month retreat. Oh, this leg was driving me crazy. It seemed like I had to stretch it, every 30 seconds. A little bit longer, but, a lot. And I think what's happening is your body, the winds in your body, the chi in your body, need to get used to being a little quieter. because especially if we're people who are running here and running there, it's hard to sit still. So, and then, the energy is like, So it just takes time for the winds to settle down and your body to get used to it. Yeah. It'll happen, don't worry. Yeah. Okay. So then somebody was asking me about some of the things in Precious Garland, because I guess they went ahead and they're purifying some of the 57 without my permission. I'm joking. So the difference between pretension and fraud. Okay, so pretension is very often paired with dissimulation. Yeah, the two, they're really good buddies, okay? So dissimulation deceives people to make them think that we want to benefit them when we don't. Or dissimulation makes us hide bad qualities that we have, okay? Pretension is pretending to have good qualities that we don't have, okay? So those two, and dissimulation, sometimes it's translated as deceit, yeah? There you're hiding bad qualities. Pretension, you're inventing good qualities, okay? So, but then fraud in the 57 is said to be a form of attachment, desiring to make a good impression on others. We give them the impression we have good qualities that we don't. So we pretend to have good qualities that we don't. So then what's the difference between fraud and pretension? Okay? Now, this is my guess, yeah? When I hear pretension, to me, pretension smacks of subtle manipulation. I don't know if that word, it's like, yeah, I want to manipulate people. And, the subtleness isn't in my motivation. It's a very clear motivation. But the subtleness is in how I want to pretend to have good qualities and to manipulate. Okay? Fraud, I think of as something much grosser. Yeah? It's like I want these people to think really well of me so that they will confirm me as in the cabinet as and head of the State Department, which is supposedly happening, the vote is happening today. But anyway, or in the Justice Department or the Education Department. And so you pretend to have qualities that you don't have in a really kind of gross, it's really fraudulent. Yeah. Whereas pretension I see as something, a little bit sneakier. Okay? But the definitions do sound quite a bit alike. Yeah? But like I said, pretension is often paired with dissimulation. Yeah? Then someone asked about discrimination of differences. Okay, so it was described as discriminating between self and others, between what I want and what I don't like, what I don't want, between friend and enemy, and that these kind of discriminations are caused by ignorance, anger, and attachment. All the three are involved in that kind of thing. And so it's having a very judgmental mind. Yeah, I really like this. I don't like that. Why do the people do this? Why don't they do that? All the time making differences between one thing or another, kind of with this, it's different than discernment. Discernment we need in order to, discern what is virtuous, what is non-virtuous, what is the correct view, what is the incorrect view, what is the path, what is not the path. Okay? So discernment is something that we really need on the path in order to discriminate between these things, between different things. Here, discrimination of differences is a very negative kind of thing. It's that constant judgmental mind that's coming up in our mind, making separation. The Dems and the Republicans can never talk to each other. The Muslims are like that, and the Jews are like that, and the Protestants are like this, and the Catholics are like that. All these kind of very harmful discriminations done with an intent, just that creates problems, okay? And so so somebody was saying, does this come from a lack of confidence or a lack of knowledge? And I think it could come from both. When we lack knowledge about things, we can often tend to make snap judgments based on superficial, information. It can also come from a lack of confidence when when we feel uncomfortable with gray, then we fall back to black and white. Okay? Black and white gives us some kind of strange feeling of security. It's either this or it's that. Gray, there's many shades of it. You have to be more flexible. You have to tune into different shades of gray and look at them individually. And for some people, that's quite uncomfortable. They want, just tell me the answer and that's it. And, so maybe that discrimination of differences works very well for those people who feel uncomfortable, but it can also, when it's not discernment, it's discrimination of differences, trying to be, inferring some kind of judgment, then it leads to a lot of problems. Okay? It could also be, related to a lack of self-confidence is our own insecurity. Because when we feel insecurity, Geshe and Darge used to talk about this. We get together with our friends and we talk about everybody else's bad qualities, and the conclusion is that we're the best people in the world. So when we feel insecure, what's the best way to feel good about ourselves is trash everybody else. Yeah, and then of course we're superior because we don't have any of those faults that we trash them for having. Okay. Yeah. So how to deal with it? Watch it. Observe how it makes you miserable. And then challenge those judgments. Challenge those opinions. Yeah. And ask yourself, are they true? Yeah. On what basis do I say they're true? So you could pretend, like people are now saying regarding one person that we're all familiar with, untruths, commonly known as lying, spill forth very easily, and we have to challenge, are these things true or not? Well, similarly with our own judgments, our own personal opinions that we hold on to so strongly, including a lot of our opinions about ourselves. We have to challenge these and say, what evidence do I have that this is true? Yeah? Like, oh, this person's my enemy. They don't like me. Well, what evidence do I have? They didn't say good morning. Okay, and you make the syllogism. This person is my enemy because they didn't say good morning. What do you think of that syllogism? I don't think that's going to work, is it? Yeah. This person is my enemy because 20 years ago they did this and that and the other thing to me. Okay, they did that 20 years ago. Why does that mean they have to be my enemy now? They're not the same person. Okay, so, challenge these discriminations. Then there was a question about, about Jigta, the view of the personal identity. And according to the school, the view of the lower schools, the body and mind appear, and we label, we designate I, or we impute I on that, okay? And so the body and mind are somehow the objects of your analysis when you're investigating, how the person exists. In the Prasangika view, it is not like this. The view of the personal identity, the observed object is the mere I. That mere I, yes, is designated independence on the body and mind. Okay, it's the observed object of that wrong view. The apprehended or conceived object of that wrong view is an inherently existent person. When you're doing the 4-point analysis, you are not looking for the conventional I, that mere I. You're also not looking for the inherently existent I. You are examining if the I, here meaning conventional I, if the I were inherently existent, how would it have to be? And then you do the analysis after that. When you have a question, think about it yourself for a while. Try and find the answer yourself. If you can't find it, then write it to me. Okay? We tend to be sometimes a little bit lazy. I know I had a question yesterday and I thought, I'll just write it down and send it to Jeffrey. And then I thought, no, that's not the way to do it. I have to think about this myself and check sources myself. And if I can't come to a conclusion myself, then ask him. Yeah? Because the whole thing is that if you have to research and think about it yourself, your wisdom is going to increase. If you just say, I have a question, please answer it, somebody tells you the answer, then you don't understand it, and often we don't remember it because we didn't have to think about it and really go into it. Yeah? So it's very helpful to think about some of these things and really ask ourselves. Okay?